Thank you. Thank you for the OER. Yeah. Hello, I'm Ground. I'm going to share with you why I failed at WWDC Swift Student Challenge and what insights I've gained through the process. Again, I'm Ground. I'm an undergraduate student at Jurong University in South Korea, mainly majoring in electronics and electrical engineering. I first encountered iOS app development, including Swift UI, at FLDF Academy in Pohang City last year, and still I'm currently studying iOS app development on my own way. And I personally like to share insights with others, so especially I love to read insightful books and have a conversation which inspires others. So I hope you guys today gain a little bit of inspiration from today's presentation. Oops. All right. So I think many of you here already know what is WWDC Swift Student Challenge is, but for those of you who don't, I'm going to explain a very short, brief explanation about it. It is a global competition organized by Apple, where students all over the world come together and create their own apps and submit it. The differences from other ordinary competition is that it is organized by the world's #1 market capitalization company, Apple. And the second point is that the criteria for awards winning is a little bit ambiguous. Officially, the criteria is creativity and technical accomplishment. And the creativity is ambiguous word, and accomplishment is an ambiguous word too. Both of them are ambiguous. So if you participate in this competition, you have no choice but to trust yourself at a certain extent. That you have to create an app that you think is subjectively creative, and you have to create an app that you think contains technical improvements. For me, it was not just a common competition for me. When we are ordinarily unsure of our skills or knowledge, we tend to look for some specific external certification. And I was not sure of my skills too. But in this competition, Apple will certify it. How many times in your life will you get the opportunity to be certified by Apple as a creative planner and a developer who can solve his or her own skill sets very wisely, and a person who can watch her or his own apps in objective way? So I started to participate in this competition. For 3 weeks, I spent every day and every night planning, designing, and developing an app that, in my point of view, contains creativity and technical improvements. And the most difficult point of my implementation was this. I wanted to implement a model that when I rotate the Earth at the left in clockwise or counterclockwise, then the time of the clock, which is in the right point, flows in forward or backwards. As the Earth is point of view from the North Pole, if the user rotates it in counterclockwise, then the time of clock will flows in forward, and when the user turn the Earth in the clockwise, then the time of the clock flows in backwards. It was a little bit hard for me, so it was the biggest challenge for me. So I think all of you here are the iOS developer, so you may be interested in how I tackled the biggest technical challenge I met at this competition. So I brought some sample codes. Yes. As we can see, there are 3 tested states model: inactive, pressing, and laterally dragging. If you don't do anything that is in an inactive state, but if you press in the circle, which is the Earth, like this, then it will enter the pressing state and the color of the circle will change to the blue. After this pressing state is successfully passed, when I drag it more, then it will become a dragging state, which is dragging state like this. To make it easier to track these complicated states, I use the enumeration, which is called RGesture state, that captures all of the states I needed to configure this view, this art view. And when you sequence one gesture after another like this, long press gesture and drag gesture, Swift UI recognizes the first gesture, long press gesture, before it recognizes the second gesture, drag gesture. To require a long press gesture before the user can drag the circle, I sequenced a drag gesture after a long press gesture like this. The important point of this model is that we need to recognize the change of the angle by rotating this view like this, because the amount of time that flows forward or backwards depends on how much this earth view will rotate. So I use the tangent function to track the angle of this view. Yeah, this is the model I used. Oh, yeah. Look at the tangent setup. You already know about the tangent setup, which is the S over Y. And this is the point that I want to configure what is the angle based starting from the Y-axis. The theta is the arc tangent S over Y. And in Swift, there is completely same function, which is called A-tan2. So I can figure out the angle of theta as theta equals to A-tan2 S, Y. And you already know that normally location parameters started from here, the leftmost top point. So in this direction, the S value of location increment, in this direction, Y value of location increments. So I wanted to convert this position from S, Y starting from the base of 0, 0 to the location start point. So I switched to these equations that location.s equals to r plus s and location y equals to r minus y. So in conclusion, the angle I want to figure out is theta, which is A-tan2 location.s minus r and r minus location y. So back to the S code. And here is the start of the angle before the dragging gesture is A-tan2 start location.s minus r, which is called half of compass at this code, and half r minus start location.y. And it's same for the final angle, which is the angle as of the dragging gesture. So by using these two angles, I can figure out I can keep track of the angle of the dragging gesture like this: final angle minus an initial angle. So it looks like our problem solved, but actually not really, because look at here. Oops, sorry. Yeah, it increments very naturally, goes well, and oops, it doesn't increment more than 360 degrees. Because when the Earth rotates one revolution, the angle drops from like this, 360 degrees to 0 degrees. And this is what I didn't intend, because I need to calculate the time data, which is which becomes more than a day. So why this phenomenon happened? This is because the logic simply calculates the differences between the two angles, which is the initial angle and the final angle. This model doesn't include any logic decides whether the finger passes over the 0 degrees from here or there. So as a result, it is simply calculating the difference between the two angles. The first solution I thought was maybe some flags would mean some hint or tips that figure out whether I should increment 360 degrees or not. So the next version is here. Wait a minute. This. So at this model, I decided to insert two flags, which is called count of plus flag and count of minus flag. A positive flag, which is called plus flag, and I thought this model would continuously track the angle of the gesture. So deciding whether to add or subtract 360 degrees can be achieved by counting the number that the gesture passes these two flags, which is plus flag is very close to the 0 in the positive way, and minus flag is very close to the 360 degrees. In like this. This is a very arbitrary value. So let's look if this works properly. Then I want to get this plus flag increment to 1. But no, it doesn't work properly. And minus flag too. I didn't know why this happens, but after I used the debugging using the print statement, I figured out the reason. That this is the angle. And SwiftUI doesn't capture the continuous value of these differences between the angle. It is very discrete values. So if I assign arbitrary just one value like this, and it doesn't capture these flags. So at this point, I wanted to give up because this technique was what I invented all of my energy and all of my time to figure out how to do this. And this is the very special technique for me. So I was running out of time and running out of energy at this moment. So I just ran away to the street in the night and started bothering myself like a crazy person. Like, what do you want? Why can't I do this? And suddenly one idea came to my head that what about change my point of view from the angles? Because I continuously tracking the angles between two gestures, two endpoints. And what about changes my mind to that angle to the coordinate system, like the second quadrant and the first quadrant? Because before this idea, I just calculating. So the degree is up to 360 degrees, but suddenly drops to 0 degrees. But I changed my point of view as like the gesture moves from the second quadrant to the first quadrant, and when the user gesture changed from the second quadrant to first quadrant, then plus 360 degrees, and vice versa. If the gesture of users changed to the first quadrant to the second quadrant, then minus 360 degrees. So at this point, I don't need the angle. I need the quadrant region, like this region and this region. So I changed my code a little bit. Yeah. Here it is. Let's find how. Here, I just recorded the past location and the new location of the moment. So I compare that if the past location is whether it's in second quadrant or the first quadrant, and I also decide if the new location is located in the second quadrant or the first quadrant. If the condition met, then the two flags, which called left to right flag or right to left flag, increments. So let's test this model. To show. Oh yes, it was. It increments over 360 degrees. And what about decrease? Oh yeah, the flag of the left worked properly. Oh yes, give me your hand. Thank you. And the result was, thank you, but I'm sorry. I expected that congratulations, you're the winner of this competition. I'll give you the AirPod and I'll invite you the Apple Pod. But the result page I faced was, thank you, but I'm sorry. And I know the reason before the announcement, that I know the pros and cons of this app because I invest my all time and all energy for 3 weeks every day, every night. But I missed the biggest drawback of this app. That is the UPads. Let's watch this demo video. After this onboarding, just drag this art to change the time of the great city and Seoul, and then check the iMessage messages and send the happy birthday Jessica and find the result. Did you understand it? Maybe not. But surprisingly, I didn't know that this is a very hard flow for the beginners because I actually talked to myself in this flow for 3 weeks every day. So I just kept in this flow that I thought that everyone in this world would understand this flow and work this naturally. But I noticed that this isn't true after submission when I just take a simple user test from a friend, and he was serving the user test like this, and suddenly saw me that what do I do? What should I do at this point? So at that point I recognized that if I get the winner, then it will be a miracle for me. So, but actually I expected that, I would be fair at this competition, but I'm a human being too. So I was a little bit sad to see these thank you pages. So I was just blanking out, and I don't know what to do right now at this moment. So when I just know what to do right now in my heart, then I just write something. I start to write something, and I studied it aimlessly, and suddenly I came out with suddenly at some point it became a letter for myself, who just faced the failure in the first time. And I read all of the letters, all of the sentences again, and I thought maybe this message would comfort other learners who tried to achieve the award but failed at the competition. So I just uploaded it in LinkedIn without anything. But it became the second most viewed article of my LinkedIn. And a lot of people tried to comfort me and give me their wisdom to encourage me. So I was very surprised because it was not my intention. I wanted to see the congratulation pages, not the comfort from others. But a lot of people tried to comfort me and encourage me. You can go to the next step. So I started to figure out why so many people try to comfort me, and why so many people try to encourage me. And the conclusion was like this. Failure is a very common phenomenon in our lives, and especially in iOS industry. Failure is very common because we are struggling to tackle the technologies that we have never seen before. But because this is a very highly competitive society, which is very close to the zero-sum game, people are shy to reveal their failures and their weakness to others, because revealing the weakness may be shortcomings of their careers or their lives. But suddenly, at the meantime, they saw my story, which is containing that I faced failure, but I will overcome it, and I will try to go to the next step with reflecting my failure. Maybe they saw a little bit of very common our lives, which is facing every day the failures and trying to go through it. I got a lot of strength a lot of comfort from them, and maybe I'm not the only one who get a lot of comfort, because there's a lot of peer learners who posted on LinkedIn that I failed at this competition, and they they personally DM me that they got a lot of comfort from the messages from others in my article. So I stand here today to ask you a suggestion that please reveal your failure in open way. Because we need to be more boldly, we need to approach more boldly to the failure, because by doing that, we can try more challenging way, like unlike the past success cases. In that way, you can try to invent more insightful apps and more new brand apps that never existed before. So I want to try to say you that please open your failures in public way, and maybe some guys who understand or who sympathize my message would congratulations and give a comfort for you, and I will do the same. Thank you. This is EOS Ground, and here is my LinkedIn referral, and here is my GitHub repo I submit to the competition. Thank you.
All right, was great. Any questions? Yep.
Actually, I am amazed by your presentation, and as an unexperienced developer, I'm very curious about the software that you were showing us. Was it a version software that you are keeping little pieces of code that you're changing on your playground?
Oh, I showed you this at this presentation.
Yes.
Oh, this is just a sample code, and there is another, the original code at here. This is a Git Kraken.
Git Kraken?
Yeah.
I'm an unexperienced developer, so I don't know about that. So.
Got it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another question?
I'm just curious about how you come up with your idea of take Earth planet and swing it when the time is going like how you come up with that idea? What inspires you to develop, to push until the end of
The original intention of this project. Because when I was young, I was very curious that why Americans always play baseball at night. In my point of view, because I couldn't understand the time difference of the time zone, and it's not a very intuitive concept for the young people. So I wanted to explain it by visualizing the concept of the time zone by rotating the Earth by his or her own hand. Where is it? Oh, here, like here. Yeah. So I expected that young people would recognize that, so there is a time zone and there is time zone differences. Because of that, there is the region of the Earth that got the sunshine, and there is the opposite region. So maybe there would be a time zone and time zone differences. So it was my intention to teach about this concept.
Have you thought about implementing it into Apple Watch? You change value, going in FaceTime, or the wallpaper of the Apple Watch. It's the same concept. Have you tried to do that?
Actually, I couldn't understand your answer. Yeah, please pardon me.
So I mean in Apple Watch, the wallpapers, faces. So have you implemented that into that watchOS? Or have you thought about that? So it's only on Apple's, right? On iPhone, right?
Actually the platform isn't necessarily explicitly combined, but I use the iPad to implement this model because it is very huge, and contains a lot of views in one window, so I use this iPad. Is it correct that I understand your question, right? Oh, thank you.
Any other questions?
Have you tried kind of expanding on this idea and making it in 3D? Like you should be able to spin the Earth in all.
Actually, I'm planning to give more onboarding stages for this app because maybe the terrible US concluded to the failure of the competition. So I'm gonna list it to implement some more onboarding stages to explain that let's rotate this arc and see this clock and blah blah blah. So I'm gonna upgrade it in the future.
Would be also cool if you had like a moon. So if you change dates and stuff, the moon would rotate more. That would be a good effect.
Very nice idea. Thank you.
Any other questions? I got one. So I think it's almost the same question, but when you build that up in the first place, were you thinking, okay, I'm just building that out for the contest, or were you also planning to, and are you planning now to make it better and release it and maybe, make it not just for the contest, something that maybe 6 months, 1 year, you will still be improving, and what's your plan?
Regardless of the contest, I will try to improve this app because this is my son. It's a special for me, so I want to improve this more.
Okay, and so you were telling about your story, why you found that project, why you created that project, that app, and so on. And I wanted to know because I never competed on the Swift Student Challenge, and I wanted to know what's the place of the storytelling when in your submission. Could you tell us, because it's a great idea what you wanted to explain to young kids and so on, but where you place for you to explain your idea in the submission, and was that counting? Because I think that's a great motivation.
Because this is a very student competition, the intention and the plan in the intention is very important. So actually the judging component contains that content of written responses. And content of written responses is like a series of the Q&A that why did you implement this, and what the technology you included, and what is your plan as the future I develop, blah, blah, blah. So I also wrote the intention I taught before at these responses.
Yes, I was pretty impressed by your app, and it looks so beautiful. And I was thinking if it could, have you ever considered synchronizing them in real time, so that we don't when we are not interacting in UI by this Earth UI component, we can maybe just real time syncing and just showing when we are not in UI interaction, the real time synchronization with the Earth movement with the countries pointed on that Earth.
So without any gesture, it is moved slowly, very slowly, according to the real time.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if we do that, if my friend is living in another country, we could refer to this app so that which time and have the sun set in that country, and it would be much more useful maybe. So that's my idea. If you are trying to develop more and release it later.
It is not very difficult. Well, actually,
Maybe challenge.
at the Swift Student Challenge, it is forbidden to use any internet connection or any other resources. So I just try to implement in this cellular mode. But if I improve more, then I can include your ideas.
So in the challenge, we cannot use APIs or internet connection.
Yeah, just the first party of the app, like a Swift UI kit or sync kit or anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
really amazing. I know you mentioned that there's no, the judging criteria is very ambiguous.
Yes.
But, do you know how they judge? Like, do you know what the grading system or something?
Oh, actually,
Like judges or this person's judge or?
I heard that the employees of Apple would judge these submissions, and because I don't know the exact criteria to become a winner. And the next speaker, Eugene, is the winner of this competition. So she will explain how she got the winner of this award.
I would pass this. I would give
Oh,
pass.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any last questions? No? So thank you, Jason. Thank you very much.
Thank you.